And you are taking a live look right here over one of the many cameras that we do have in this general area of Israel. This is Jerusalem, where you can see it looks like it is a cloudy day right now, a fairly foggy one. I do want to get to the latest here on the Middle East at 6:03 on the East Coast and 3:03 on the West Coast. The Israel Defense Forces confirming the death of the Hamas commander who led the attack on a bomb shelter during the October 7th massacre. Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari saying that Mohammed Abu Atawi was eliminated this week in an Israeli strike. Now, Hagari did add that Atawi worked for UNRWA, which is the United National Relief and Works Agency, for the last 2 years, which UNRWA did confirm. Now, Kogat did post a photo. I do want to pop this up for you on your screen here. As they say, this is that UNRWA staffer from October 7th. You see him circled on the left-hand side of your screen there. The IDF says Atawi led the killing and kidnapping of Israelis from a roadside bomb shelter near Kibbutz Re'im, where those who escaped the attack at the Nova Music Festival were seeking safety at the time. American Hirsch Goldberg Poland, who has since been executed while in Hamas captivity, was among those kidnapped from that shelter. Obviously, as always, a lot to discuss this morning, so I do want to bring in Alex Traiman, the CEO and Jerusalem Bureau Chief at the Jewish News Syndicate. Thank you so much, as always, for taking the time to be here with us, Alex.
Thanks so much for having me, Josh.
Of course. Well, first off, I do want to start with talking about Atawi here. What do we know about him overall? Because he was a well-known commander in that area who played a pivotal role, according to the IDF, in the October 7th massacre.
Yeah, I think that's right. And you presented a lot of it. He was one of the masterminds behind the attack, and particularly the attack of the Nova Music Festival, where over 230 people were killed. And he took several hostages from there, as you mentioned, and killed many others there. But then after the October 7th attack, he was also part of the Central Brigades Command in the Gaza Strip and was responsible for a lot of the offensive attacks against the IDF.
And I guess the question becomes, does this send any sort of message to Hamas, to Hezbollah, really to all of the terrorist organizations in that area?
Well, I think that you're seeing the IDF continuing to target Hamas's leadership, and they're also going after these reorganized battalions. The IDF had said that they'd taken out 24, 25 out of the Hamas battalions. Taking out a battalion means 50% killed or injured, but that means that you could still have a lot of Hamas terrorists running around the strip. So with time now, we're a year into this, we've seen some of those battalions reorganize under local leaders, and the IDF has been doubling back to different areas where they had previously gone through and maybe taken control of, but now are going back into those areas as Hamas tries to reestablish localized control.
Following the killing of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, have we seen Hamas terrorists surrendering? Because I remember a lot of the images that we did see right after the start of the Gaza war showed a lot of the different soldiers kind of handing over their weapons, handing over their guns, and surrendering to Israel. Have we seen more of that since the killing of Sinwar?
I'm not sure we're seeing more of that, as much as those that don't want to be in the fight are staying away. But those that are there, with the guns pointed at the IDF, they're not running away when the IDF comes in. We have heard in Lebanon, though, that many members of this Nukhba Force have been essentially surrendering or retreating, not to be killed by the IDF when they come in.
As far as U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken's visit there to Israel earlier this week, yesterday he spoke alongside the Qatari Prime Minister there about a lot of topics, but he mentioned that ceasefire hostage release deal and said that there is a new framework that is going to be discussed when we see in the next few days the Mossad chief as well as those U.S. officials head over to Doha. Do you think the death of Sinwar has brought a deal any closer to a reality?
I think that it can bring a deal closer to reality. It was believed and reported that Sinwar was the one holding up a deal. So if Hamas, many of whose leaders like Khalid Mashal still remain in Qatar, feel that there's nothing more to gain by having the IDF continue to run through the Gaza Strip, they may choose to release some of the hostages. The Prime Minister's office this morning praised the Egyptian mediators for putting forward a a renewed push toward a hostage release deal. And as you mentioned, Israel will be sending the head of the Mossad and the Shin Bet over to Doha in order to try to negotiate some kind of release. They talk about maybe a limited framework for the release of just a few hostages in exchange for a 2-week ceasefire, and still also discussions about the larger ceasefire. But big questions as to how many hostages actually remain in the Gaza Strip, and is there any centralized force that knows where these hostages are if they're still alive?
I've asked you this before, but I want to get kind of a personal perspective there. What is daily life like in Israel, specifically where you are? Because we know that we've seen videos earlier on this week. Elan Levy, the former Israeli government spokesperson, posted some video overhead that did show some of the rocket fire coming in from Lebanon being intercepted, again, overhead. I know folks are running to bomb shelters a lot and told to stay near those bomb shelters at times. What is daily life like there for you and others?
So it really depends where you live. If you live in Jerusalem, where I'm sitting right now, it's been relatively quiet since the beginning of the war. Now, in the north, and in areas like Haifa and Akko and Nahariya, the Golan Heights, the Galil, they've been pummeled on a daily basis. And there's a lot of anxiety, post-traumatic stress, people that have to run into shelters, sometimes with just several seconds notice, sometimes with no notice. You're hearing booms overhead, without any sirens or pre any warning signs. So, it's certainly a situation that can't really continue here in the north. Over 80,000 residents have been evacuated from their homes in the north. They haven't been able to return home in about a year's time. So depending on where you are, it can be quiet. And if it is quiet, like in Jerusalem, people go about their regular business. Obviously, if people are diving into bomb shelters, it's something different. And the entire country waiting to see if Israel will strike directly back against Iran, and then what a retaliation could look like, because that can blanket the entire country and put everybody into the bomb shelters.
Speaking about that Iran attack that could or could not happen, does it still seem like not only is it going to happen, but like it could actually take place in the near future, soon?
Well, nobody really knows when it's going to take place. All indications are that it could happen imminently, although the Iranian attack, ballistic missile attack, took place on October 1st, so that's over 3 weeks ago. And Israel said that it's going to retaliate, and it's going to retaliate hard. But yeah, it's 3 weeks on, and we haven't seen that happen yet. There were reports that the United States had leaked some information about that attack, many reports about that, and then follow-up reports saying that Israel was actually changing some of the details of that attack in order to maintain the element of surprise and recalibrate how it's going to attack, and also playing out some more scenarios, what they might expect in retaliation for such an attack. So yes, it does feel like this attack is going to happen. Senior IDF and the defense minister indicating that it will happen, and it will happen soon, but it's a waiting game right now, and everybody wants to see what's going to happen.
Talking a little bit more about that rocket fire coming in from Lebanon by Hezbollah. We know that they fired a barrage of about 50 or so rockets just yesterday. We know there have been several injuries and deaths that have been reported over the past several weeks and months here. Are more of those rockets actually making their way into Israeli airspace than previous months?
Yes, particularly the drones. We saw a strike even just a week ago on Prime Minister Netanyahu's home. It basically hit bulletproof glass outside the home, and it did not signal any warning signs. And there was been some other drones that seemed to be able to bypass Israel's warning detection because of the low height which they're able to fly, I guess, and you have some of these other missiles which are precision guided, and we're seeing that even if the warning signals do go up, that it's not necessarily enough. There's not enough of a formidable response to prevent 100% of these rockets that do enter into Israeli airspace from hitting their targets. And that also indicates why Israel has to go so strong and so quickly inside southern Lebanon, because Israel can't afford to continue to take the barrages of rockets and the damage that they're causing on the home front.
Was it well known in that area that Netanyahu did have bulletproof glass on his home? I wanted to get your take on that, because we saw the images come in, and then I saw a reporter basically post, hey, we learned that his windows have bulletproof glass. Is that something that is well known in that area?
Well, I don't think that should be a surprise to anyone. The Prime Minister of Israel is one of the most well-protected men in the entire world. Obviously, he's a target for attacks from all the enemies of the Jewish people. He's probably target number one. And I don't think this is a new development that there was bulletproof glass on the windows. It's you can't get anywhere near the Prime Minister of Israel without going through multiple metal detectors. A very, very significant security presence in and around the Prime Minister.
All right. Alex Traiman there, CEO and Jerusalem Bureau Chief at the Jewish News Syndicate. As always, thank you so much for being here with us. Anything else you want to add really about any of this before I let you go?
Well, again, this indication of if and when Israel's going to strike Iran, and can this war actually end without Israel attacking Iran? This is the major question mark here. Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis are all proxies of the Iranian regime, and it definitely feels as though while we're winding down this phase one of the war in Gaza, and we might see the release of hostages and a potential ceasefire over there, we're nowhere near finished in Lebanon, and it also seems like this front with Iran is now just opening up. So, I imagine that this war is going to continue raging for the next several months at least, if not longer.
All right. Alex, thank you again for being here with us today. We appreciate it.
Josh, thanks so much for having me.